Hey up, it's Steve from that old Yorkshire Geek, and we're doing another Star Trek list. I'm doing a lot of Star Trek lists lately, but why not? Star Trek lists are cool. This one's about Shran. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, because I don't think I've ever heard his name spoken out loud, his first name anyway. This is the fella in question. There he is. Commander Shran, we all know from Star Trek Enterprise, who was a friend of Jonathan Archer. They kind of were thrown together, became unlikely friends and allies. An amazing character, played obviously by Jeffrey Combs. But anyway, here we go. Star Trek 10 Things You Didn't Know About Shran, a constant frenemy to the NX-01. There's more than meets the antenna under that blue skin. He was more a friend than an enemy, really. Making his debut in Enterprise's first season episode The Andorian Incident, Shran, Star Trek's first recurring Andorian, wasted no time in making his mark on the show and Trek lore as a whole. Although his first appearance would portray him as a ruthless commando with a not unfounded distaste for Vulcan trickery, Shran would spend the next 4 seasons leaping and bounding across the line of hero and villain in the eyes of Captain Archer and the Enterprise crew. Slavishly bound to Archer by a constantly shifting debt of one-upmanship and tit-for-tat, Shran's appearances would rapidly become a fixture of Enterprise's run. As his single-minded opposition to the hated Vulcans gradually shifts to one of conciliation, he becomes emblematic of the unity disparate societies could foster and ultimately leads to the formation of the Federation itself. Whilst, I hate that word, while we can learn much about Andorian culture from Shran's appearances, there's still much we don't know about the man himself. Here then are some little-known facts about the tenacious commander that may pique the antennae of even the most ardent of Trekkies. Right, number 10, nobody else could play the part, obviously. There's Jeffrey Combs as Brunt, and the voter, I forgot his bloody name now, in Deep Space Nine. Weyoun. There was Weyoun and Brunt. And Shran. Just 3 of the many characters he's played in Star Trek. When casting a role of a recurring character, Star Trek's casting directors often have entire phone books of reliable names they can call upon, who sit for hours on end in makeup to portray myriad characters across Star Trek's multiple series. I think the record, though, for different characters played in Star Trek could be Vaughn Armstrong. I could be wrong. But anyway. Of all these names, few have such regard in the fan community as Jeffrey Combs. Is it Combs or Combs? I always pronounce it Combs. But anyway. Reoccurring to the point of being meme-worthy, Combs' Trek acting CV includes Penk in Voyager's Tsunkatse. That's a terrible episode, is that? It's got The Rock in it. The Ferengi Krem in earlier Enterprise episode Acquisition, and another episode that's not good, and the megalomaniacal supercomputer Agimus in multiple episodes of Lower Decks. I've not seen. I've been rewatching Lower Decks, but I'm still on season 1, and I'm kind of gritting my teeth and getting through it. It's in Deep Space Nine, however, where Coombs truly makes his mark, appearing as Tyran in the episode Meridian, as well as the recurring roles of Brunt, of the FCA, that's the Ferengi Commerce Authority, I think, and 5 different versions of Weyoun. It's unsurprising then that when the time came to cast Shran, the team behind the camera knew exactly who to call. Coombs was offered the part without even auditioning, and impressed the crew with his ability to act past the slightly silly antennae to create a character who could portray both threat and pathos with a kind of depth the role demanded. There we go. Number 2. 9. That was 10, wasn't it? Number 9, not number 2. He would have joined the NX-01 in Season 5. I've heard this one. Despite a devoted fan base, by the way, there's the Enterprise NX-01, still one of my favourite starships in there. If not my... No. I don't know. It's a tight call between this and the Enterprise D for my favourite. Although, the Constitution class refit, you can't go wrong there, can you? But I do like the NX-01 design. Despite having a devoted fan base and stronger writing across seasons 3 and 4, the writing... I liked all of Enterprise. I liked all of it. The writing was on the wall for Enterprise's earlier Season 2's finale. Staffing shifts and studio interference at Paramount, as well as declining viewing figures, led to Enterprise dropping to a doomed Friday night broadcast slot. And sure enough, on 2nd of February 2005, the show was cancelled and there was no Trek on TV for the first time in 18 years. Can I thank Les Moonves for that? He hated it. He always hated Star Trek. The cancellation came as a sting to many, but served as a colossal missed opportunity for Shran actor Jeffrey Combs. Had Enterprise made it past its 4th season, plans were in place to bring Shran onto the bridge of the Enterprise in Season 5. Serving as an auxiliary officer and advisor to Archer, Shran would bring another perspective amid the tentative alliance between Earth, Vulcan and Andoria. So as an advisor. I mean, it was Commander Shran. He commanded, ships of his own. And to be like an auxiliary officer, I'm not sure he'd have done that, to be honest. I think that might have been a bit of a mistake, but unless he were booted out of the the Andorian, what do they call it now, the Andorian Imperial Guard, I don't know, but I thought it could have been like, he may have accepted like executive officer, which is like on a par with first officer, isn't it? But XO. It's up there, isn't it? But anyway. Despite his numerous credits in Trek, Coombs has never had the honour of his name in the opening credits. Discovering these plans after the cancellation, he probably put it best commenting, "Ah man, the one that got away. Dang it. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Maybe one day, Jeffrey. Maybe one day." Maybe so. We will see. It'd have been cool though, wouldn't it, see Shran in a Starfleet uniform? Would they put him in a uniform? Starfleet uniform, or would he have been like T'Pol and wore a thing of his own, but with maybe a Starfleet thing on? Not a pin, not a comm badge, because they don't have them, do they? But you know what I mean. An insignia. Right, he has two ships named after him. Although his initial appearances wouldn't suggest as such, Shran would become a key player in the early days of the Federation, even helping to stop the destruction of Earth by the Xindi reptilian Dolim. Whether or not this heroic act may be down to Shran's constant attempts to settle the score with Archer, you can't argue with results. He always turned up at the right moment. Just in the nick of time, Shran would appear, either all guns blazing or with a tractor beam, something like that. He was amazing, I loved him. Have a drinky pool. Sure enough, in the centuries following the Xindi conflict, Shran's name would adorn two separate Federation starships seen in the series. The first, both in terms of broadcast and chronology, would be the USS Shran. Operating in 2256, the Shran is one of the many ships involved in the Battle of the Binary Stars, the kicking off point for Star Trek Discovery, and the scene of many hideous starships, but on both sides. And the opening conflict in the Federation-Klingon War. A massacre for the Federation, the Shran is one of at least 12 starships destroyed in the conflict. Warping ahead almost 150 years, the antagonistic commander's name would pop up again, adorning the hull of the USS Thylex Shran in Star Trek Picard, docked at Sol Station, while Admiral Picard and Captain Riker make their way to the USS Titan A. So there we go. So, which is that must be the Thylex Shran, because that looks very 24th century, doesn't it? Not 23rd century. Right, let's move on. Number 7. He has two names. Has he? Oh, outside of the canonical television series, the Star Trek novels have become a boundless resource for further reading to either expand upon characters and plots within the series, or controversially to retcon them and tell all new tales. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the 2007 novel The Good That Men Do by Andy Mangles and Michael A. Martin. Reframing the events of Enterprise's disastrous finale, These Are the Voyagers, the novel involves Deep Space Nine's Jake Sisko and Nog uncovering a declassified Federation data chips concerning the events seen in Riker's holodeck program. It is revealed that the official record of events seen in the holodeck are a fabrication, and that Trip Tucker's death was fake so that he could carry out undercover work for the clandestine Section 31. I'm not sure about that, but yes, justice for Trip, that's what I say. Featuring prominently in the novel, Shran's name is given as Shran Thozoare. This tongue twister of a name fits more closely with Andorian naming conventions established in the earlier Deep Space Nine relaunch novels, and the in-universe explanation has Thylek as the Enar form of his name. Why use his Enar name off-world? Well, see how long you last correcting people's pronunciation of Ravishran Thozoare. Yeah, we'll just stick with Shran. So there we go. He's got two names, an Enar name and a regular name. So we're using his Enar name at the beginning, even before we knew the Enar existed. That's interesting. Right, number 6. His great-grandson served in the Federation Klingon War. Despite their cordial relationships in later centuries, Earth's early encounters with the Klingons could best be described somewhere between antagonistic and outright hostile. As NX-01 began boldly going into the stars, they would have a few run-ins with the Empire, usually with the Duras chap, including Archer being labelled an enemy of the state and Dr. Phlox averting a lethal plague during the Augment crisis. In the years following these events, the Federation was formed and encounters with the Klingons became incredibly scarce. All this changed, however, with the onset of the Federation Klingon War in 2256 at the Battle of the Binary Stars. Although this battle would spell the end of the ship bearing Shran's name, his legacy would live on aboard the USS Sabrova, captained by his great-grandson Thykir. I'm probably mispronouncing. I bet it's Thykir or something, or Tikir or something like that. Because thick ear sounds something my mother had said. Come here, I'll give you a thick ear. Anyway, appearing in the Age of Discovery expansion of Star Trek Online, this junior Shran assists the player in several missions, including the defence of Starbase 1. Voiced once again by Coombs, with a noticeable resemblance to his ancestor, this Shran is determined to take the fight to the Klingons and step out of his grandfather's shadow. Oh, so we'll probably do hear it spoken out loud in the game. I've not played it, so I have played Star Trek Online, but I've not played that bit. Right, moving on. Number 5. His mirror universe counterpart is Empress Sato's consort. Oh, that's interesting. Non-canon. If it's in a novel, it's non-canon, isn't it? Appearing across 16 different episodes in 4 different shows to date, the Mirror Universe has been a reliable source of narrative material for Star Trek writers for decades. Whether it's a terrifying exploration of inverted morality, a daft excuse for actors to ham it up, or a weird way to make Kira Nerys as horny as possible. Yeah, but she was sexy, wasn't she? Episodes in this brutal world always have something unexpected for the viewer to enjoy. In the world of the Star Trek novels, non-canon, this universe of evil twins and even more evil facial hair, only Spock had the goatee and he was a goodie. Anyway, it's just as ripe for stories as its on-screen counterparts. Following on from the events of the Enterprise two-parter In a Mirror Darkly, one of the greatest ever Star Trek episodes in my opinion, the 2007 novel Age of the Empress finds the Mirror Hoshi Sato consolidating her power after taking over the Empire with the time-displaced USS Defiant. But how can one ship take over an empire? I know it's from like 100 years in the future, their future, but you know, just sheer numbers, you'd think of, you know, other ships attacking it and destroy it, but never mind. Sato, in an effort to curry favour, takes on this universe's General Shran, both as her romantic consort and military leader. However, as is customary for mirror storylines, betrayal and double crosses lead to Shran seizing the throne for himself, overseeing savage bombings of civilian targets, before Sato summarily retakes the throne and has him executed. Nice bit of light reading then. Yeah. Number 4. He would have bridged the gap between Enterprise and the original series, would he? Oh, right. Following the Enterprise, there he is shaking the hand of the Tellarite ambassador after they initially, you know, they fell out, but the Tellarites killed his love interest, even though they were married. Yeah, he had a mistress. Anyway, Following Enterprise's cancellation in 2005, the future seemed hazy for the entire Star Trek franchise. For the first time in 18 years, there was no Star Trek on screen, and Paramount were determined to find a way to reboot the series in the wake of Enterprise's lacklustre crawl across the finish line. Enterprise were amazing, I loved it. Although the hard reboot would come in 2009 with the release of J.J. Abrams' timeline-busting Star Trek movie, there were originally plans for a much more continuity-honouring project. Star Trek The Beginning was originally pitched to Paramount with the first draft in August 2006, set 4 years after the events of Terra Prime, the de facto finale for fans who consider These Are the Voyages to be heresy. It's not that bad. It ain't great, but it's not that bad. The script, apart from the death of Trip, spoilers, the script concerns the beginnings of the Earth-Romulan War and would kick off a trilogy of films culminating in a bridge to the original series. Although this movie would have been the first Star Trek film to include no mainline characters, the only familiar face would have been none other than Commander Shran. Although his role in the movie is completely unknown, promising Jeffrey Combs is usually a surefire way to get Trekkies interested. Yeah, that'd have been cool. That'd have been cool. I wonder why none of the others had appeared if they're getting Shran in. I bet they would. Number 3, Jeffrey Combs is the quintessential Andorian. Despite their position as one of the 4 founding races of the Federation, alongside humans, Vulcans and Tellarites, it took a long time for Andorians to have significant representation in Star Trek, with only 6 appearances leading up to Enterprise, including one purely holographic one. The writing team were determined to take this previously silly-looking race and turn them into believable players on the galactic stage. I'm trying to think now. 6. I think we saw one in the motion picture. Maybe, and I think we saw one in one of the other Star Trek films, maybe Star Trek 4 at the end, in the the Federation Council chamber or whatever the hell were. I think we saw one then. Obviously, Journey to Babel, we saw one then, didn't we? Although it turned out not to be an Andorian, but I think there were other Andorians in it. That was only 3. I can't think of any more now. That's leading up to Enterprise. Did we see any in Next Generation or Voyager or Deep Space Nine? You know what, I can't think that we did. We must have done at some point. Anyway, that's the only 3 I can think of. I'm sure my friend Wingray / Archmage Frey knows them all. Anyway, owing to advancements in makeup and prosthetics, as well as servo mechanics to make their antenna functional, a respectable appearance was designed, but it would take a memorable performance to match, which would truly establish the race. That's how we first saw him, and he appeared on screen, but it was on the back of Archer's head, but he had like antenna, and then he's like moved to the side, and we saw it was Shran, didn't we? Sure enough, the gamble paid off, with a cast of Andorian characters led by Jeffrey Combs as fantastically wily Commander Shran. The race was lent enough legitimacy to recur with such varied characters as Rin in Discovery, Tyses, I don't know, in Prodigy, and Jennifer in Lower Decks, as well as the Ina Hemmer in Strange New Worlds. All of them, of all the myriad Andorians who have graced our screens, it is probably Shran who stands out the most, with Rin actor Noah Averbach-Katz citing Coombs' performance as inventing the Andorians. Still no word on some deep and meaningful Tellarites, though. Oh, let's see, they get missed out. I mean, we had the Tellarite in Star Trek Prodigy, but I didn't particularly like that character, even though he's, what they call him, Jaglum, something or other. But yes, Tellarites get mixed out a bit. Anyway, he makes a 1992 video game canon. Right? How can he do that? Because he wasn't invented in 1992. Anyway, whatever. Let's see what it says. Despite its prevalence within the realms of television, film and books, Star Trek has a remarkably small footprint when it comes to the world of gaming. There's lots of Star Trek games if you go looking. Although over 60 games sporting their license have been released over the span of Star Trek's tenure, Star Trek Online is arguably the only way to have really made a mark on the gaming landscape. I'm going to have to get back to that. I haven't played it for ages. I've totally forgotten where I am and what I'm doing. But anyway. However, somebody on the writing team of Enterprise's Season 3 episode Proving Ground was clearly a fan of the 1992 Star Trek 25th Anniversary PC game. Oh, excuse me. In the episode, while contacting... Stop using whilst. In the episode, while contacting the Xindi in his effort to scan or steal their superweapon, Shran poses as a member of the Andorian Mining Consortium, a seemingly innocuous and throwaway line to all but the most die-hard of fans. The consortium is actually mentioned in the 1992 game as the third largest private corporation in the Federation. The name would crop up again online in April 2020 with the Facebook page, the Andorian Memeing Consortium, sharing Star Trek-related memes and boasting over 24,000 followers at the time of writing. Although we can't credit this one to Shran himself, we can't help but think the group may not exist without him keeping the name alive. Very good. And finally, he's left-handed. He's a lefty. Throughout the 4-year run of Enterprise, Shran proves himself to be a valuable ally, dangerous opponent, fiercely intelligent tactician and capable warrior anytime the Enterprise finds themselves either facing him down or by his side. How much more impressive it is then to find out that Shran is achieving all of these feats with his non-dominant hand. Indeed, although Shran's first appearance on Pajem has him dual-wielding Andorian rifles, and he proceeds to spend the rest of the episode definitely favouring his right hand while holding his rifle, stop saying whilst, a communicator, or his fist, while beating Archer for information, the website StarTrek.com definitively states that he is left-handed. Is this a continuity oversight on the part of the official website for the Star Trek franchise? Perhaps. Something Shran has had to overcome for the right-hand-focused Ushan combat ritual. Does Andorian dexterity work differently than we humans? Perhaps a tie-in novel will answer these questions one day. All I know is that you asked for 10 facts and here's the 10th one. Or maybe just the person that wrote the official website thing for him were a left-handed and thought, I'm going to make Shran left-handed. So there we go. 10 things you didn't know about Thylex Shran, or Thylex Shran, or Tilex Shran. I have no idea how to pronounce it. But there we go. So, thanks for watching, wherever you are. Look after each other, and until next time, I'll say